and Riot. The all-time... All of these famous stories that make sports history on the big moment.
We've got some great stories for you. The first one, well, I hate to start out by calling anything the biggest or the best. But I believe that this was the biggest moment in sports. In fact, so terrific, it completely blotted the greatest day a famous ball player ever had. The story? Well, let's see.
Boston, September 30th, 1951. The Giants have done the impossible. They've defeated Boston in the last game of the season and have come from 13 and a half games back to take a half-game lead over Brooklyn for the pennant. The heroes, Larry Jansen, the winning pitcher, Monty Irvin and DeRocher himself. The Giants are celebrating because over in Philadelphia, the Phillies are leading Brooklyn. And if Brooklyn loses, the Giants are in. But the Dodgers have fought back to an 8-8 tie, mostly on the back, shoulders, and heart of one man, Jackie Robinson. It was Jackie Robinson's greatest day. His hitting had kept Brooklyn in the game, and then in the 11th, he had held off the Phillies with a desperate diving catch. Now in the 14th inning, 2 out, nobody on, again Brooklyn looked to Robinson. And there it was, a home run in the gathering twilight to give Brooklyn a 9-8 victory and a tie for the National League pennant. But such is baseball, that this day, a day that might have lived forever in the minds of the fans, was blotted out, forgotten, in the exciting climax that all the baseball world does remember. It was 3 days later, the 9th inning of the deciding game of the playoff. Brooklyn was ahead 4-1, when Lockman's double made the score 4-2, and the stage was set. A tired Newcomb paused, wished his reliever Branca good luck, and walked on. Everyone was still. The first pitch was a strike. And then Bobby Thompson hit a home run that gave the Giants a 5-4 victory. Nothing more exciting had ever happened on the baseball diamond. Watch Stanky bound out to third base to congratulate DeRocher. We'll see many famous finishes on this program and of many different sports. But to some, this will always be the most famous finish in all sports history. Sunday, August the 9th, 1953, the Tam O'Shanter's $75,000 World Championship Tournament. As it neared the end, the leaders were Chandler Harper of Portsmouth, Virginia, and Lou Worsham of Oakmont, Pennsylvania. With this putt on the 72nd hole, Chandler Harper sewed up the tournament. At least everybody thought so. No one else had a chance. No one except Lou Worsham, who needed an impossible 2 on the 72nd hole. Want to see the impossible? Watch. What a shot, and what a finish. Baseball, golf, and now on September 5th, 1949, the final match of the National Tennis Championships between Pancho Gonzalez and Ted Schroeder. Here is the story. The first set went 34 games before Schroeder won. It was the longest set ever played in a final match. This is Schroeder in the near court. Schroeder won the second set 6-2, time and time again, passing Gonzalez easily. Gonzalez seemed hopelessly outclassed. But then, without the crowd even sensing it, was the beginning of another famous finish. Francho Gonzalez fought back and took the next two sets, 6-1, 6-2. Watch Gonzalez put this one away. In the final set, with the score 5-4, Gonzalez serving, we come to perhaps the closest call ever made on a championship match point. Keep your eyes on the far right sideline. Schroeder drives out, and the tournament goes to Gonzalez. If you're still not sure, we thought we'd show you the shot over again. Ready? Keep your eyes on that right sideline. Now. Convinced? What a call. And if you think that was close, wait until you see the finish of today's football story.
3 years in the Navy and I still can't tie a bowline. Our next story is about an admiral in a Seabiscuit. But it's not a Navy story. In fact, you won't even see any water.
November the 1st, 1938. Sixth race, the Pimlico Special. Match race between two great horses, War Admiral and Seabiscuit. Winner take all. Everyone was there. On the left is George Wolfe riding Seabiscuit. On the right, Charlie Kurtzinger, War Admiral's jockey. Sam Riddle, owner of War Admiral, who was number 1 and the favorite. He looked the part of a champion. Charles Howard, owner of Seabiscuit, who held the number 2 position. No starting gate was used, and they were off. To the amazement of everyone, it was not the favored War Admiral that bounded into the lead, but number 2, Seabiscuit. War Admiral was one of the most famous front-running horses in racing history. He always took the lead and just kept running until all the others quit. The experts had had this race figured the same way and were surprised when Seabiscuit broke in front. However, the form players soon relaxed, for War Admiral slowly but steadily closed in, until there seemed to be but one horse. War Admiral and Seabiscuit. You'll never see a finer race. As they made the final turn, an underrated Seabiscuit gave proof of being a really great horse. He had met the Admiral's challenge, and now it was his turn. He pulled in front first by a nose, then by a head, then half a length. There was no doubt now it was Seabiscuit's race. Now, if you look close, you can see one of the most interesting shots ever to come in front of our cameras. Jockey Wolfe on Seabiscuit turns and gives his opinion and advice to a beaten War Admiral. Seabiscuit, champion racehorse, another famous finisher.
For years, one of the greatest records in track has been the mile run. How close could a man come to running a mile in 4 minutes? In the early 1900s, it took nearly 4.5 minutes. Then such stars as Cunningham, Venske, Santee, Lovelock kept hammering at that time.
This is Joey Ray from Kankakee, Illinois, steelworker. He was more famous back around 1920 than Bannister or Landy or Ibbotson are today. 57 times he ran the mile under 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and that was like breaking 4 minutes today. Mr. Ray, now in his late 60s, still runs a mile on every birthday. Back in the 20s, the 4-minute mile seemed further away than space travel does now. But by the end of his career, Joey Ray lowered the time for the mile to 4 minutes 14 and 4/10 seconds. Here are some early films taken nearly 30 years ago. Joey Ray, the track sensation of the 20s. After Ray came Paavo Nurmi, the Flying Finn, perhaps the greatest distance runner of all time. Between 1920 and 1932, he set 20 different world records. The mile, 1,500 meters, 5,000 meters, 10,000 meters, and almost every cross-country event. When Nurmi visited America, thousands turned out to see him. Paavo Nurmi ran as tirelessly as a machine, and he brought the mile record down to 4 minutes, 10 and 4/10 seconds. Later in the 30s, from Kansas came Glenn Cunningham. In this beautiful slow-motion sequence, you can see Cunningham's style, his high kick. He seems almost to dance on his toes. Here's Cunningham in action in the mid-30s, racing against a big field at Randall's Island, New York. Watch Cunningham on the outside just pull ahead to win in the stretch. He cut the mile record down to 4 minutes, 6 and 7/10 seconds. One of Cunningham's greatest rivals in this era was Gene Bensky of Pottstown, Pennsylvania, who was called the picture runner because of his graceful style. Cunningham-Bensky mile duels were a top sports attraction in the 30s. And here Bensky's finishing spurt was just enough to win. As the 4-minute mile loomed as a real possibility, the runner on whom Americans pinned their hopes was Wes Santee. Wes, another Kansan, had a light-footed stride and certainly was a threat to the 4-minute mile. This is Santee with the Kansas coach Bill Easton. Santee's finest race came in the Texas relays at Austin when he ran in an invitation mile. Santee ran away from the field and finished in just 1/2 second over 4 minutes, the fastest mile ever run in America up to that time. But the great day in foot racing came at Oxford, England on May 7th, 1954. A young English medical student, Dr. Roger Bannister, and a picked field of men to pace him were to make a special assault on the 4-minute barrier. The race was carefully planned. The first pacer, Chris Brasher, was to set a blistering tempo for the first half. Then when Brasher was exhausted, Chris Chataway took over, with Bannister still following the pace closely. They'd passed the 3/4 mark, a 1/2 second over 3 minutes, not quite fast enough. Then Bannister took the lead. With 300 yards to go, he called upon his last reserve. Bannister drove himself forward with a furious finishing kick. The time, 3:59 and 4/10 seconds. For the first time in history, a man had run a mile in less than 4 minutes.
March 17th, 1955. Keep that date in mind. Hockey, the fastest game on earth. A story about a sport where rhubarbs and riots are part of the rules. In fact, fighting is so common, the rules provide that if you fight and draw blood, that's a major penalty. No blood, a minor penalty. Now watch the left side of the screen. See that number 9? There he is, in the net, scoring a goal for the Montreal Canadiens. Number 9 is one of the most famous players the game has ever had, Maurice the Rocket Richard. Wherever there's aggressive, smart, and fast, and the idol of Canadian fans. Here's another goal from way out. There's another time you find Richard in the thick of it, when there's a fight. Here's one, and here he comes. The Rocket follows fireworks and fisticuffs like a kid follows a brass band. It was because of Richard that Montreal was turned inside out on March 17, 1955. League President Clarence Campbell had suspended Richard from the Stanley Cup Series for striking an official, and the Montreal fans were outraged. Campbell, who was no coward, came to the game as though nothing had happened. This was a cup match, but to the fans, the game was secondary to their feud with Campbell. Before long, all the surrounding spectators had fled, leaving the brave Campbells alone to face the angry fans. Even when homemade bombs interrupted the action, the league president remained in his seat. At last, the police insisted on escorting the couple out of the arena, but that didn't stop the rioting. It was one of the wildest uprisings in sports history. Police arrested 74. 25 others were treated in hospitals for injuries, including Campbell himself. Rhubarbs on ice, they're old stuff. But you see king-size riots like this only once in a lifetime.
Ladies and gentlemen, for your entertainment, we present The Strongest Man on Earth. Philadelphia, June 2nd, 1956. The floor of the Pennsylvania Palestra quivered under the mightiest muscle men in the United States. John Davis's Olympic heavyweight victory in 1952 singled him out as the strongest man in the world, then. But Davis has been muscled up. From the hills of North Georgia came a 340-pound Hercules, Paul Anderson. With this lift, Paul Anderson broke his own world record, a 440-pound jerk lift, completing a total of 1,175 pounds on 3 types of lifts, nearly half a ton. The strongest man on earth. Previously in Moscow, the Iron Curtain had parted. Thousands and thousands had jammed an open-air theater to see American and Russian weightlifters meet. A United States team had been invited to test their strength against the Soviets. The Russians were sinewy athletes, trained to perfection, and they were powerful, make no mistake about that. The spectators sat back in anticipation of victory over the soft capitalists. Then out rolled a great ball of a man, Paul Anderson. The Russians snickered. But as they watched, up went the barbell with 402.5 pounds, an absolutely unheard of lift. The snickers stopped.
Anderson had cracked all weightlifting records. By the time he reached Leningrad, his fame had spread all over the vast Russian country. Crowds flocked to see him perform, and the boy from Toccoa, Georgia practically became a national Russian hero, the strongest man on earth.
November the 3rd, 1945. Here's a famous finish they'll probably never stop arguing about. There were 82,000 people in Municipal Stadium, Cleveland, to see undefeated Navy play undefeated Notre Dame. Notre Dame in the dark jerseys scored late in the first quarter with Dansowitz passing to the Navy 25 and Ruggiero pile driving off tackle to score. The play seesawed with no scoring for the rest of the first half. Navy intercepted and carried the attack, but was unable ever to move the ball further than the Notre Dame 20. Then, in the closing minutes of the first half, Navy's Bruce Smith passed. Notre Dame's Bill Leonard intercepted and was off, with 3 Navy men chasing him. But down he went, and Notre Dame didn't score. The half ended still, Notre Dame 6, Navy nothing. Early in the half, Navy Smith started a threat with a beautiful run. Watch him straight arm this man. But still, Navy couldn't penetrate the 20, and Notre Dame took over. Dansowitz passed once too often, and Scott intercepted. And when Clyde Smackover Scott took off, nobody ever caught him. He scored without a man putting a hand on him. Notre Dame 6, Navy 6. And now we'll see one of the most disputed calls in all football history. It came in the last 30 seconds of the game. The play was set up when Notre Dame passed in the final minute, with Leonard going all the way to the Navy 17. There was time for perhaps 1 or 2 more plays. Dansowitz faded back. Pass to Colella. Was he over or wasn't he? Remember, the ball itself has to be over the line. The ball never went over the goal line. It was a wonderful call and a tough one. What a finish. In fact, this is one of the most famous and disputed finishes of all football stories. There was time for one last play. Navy held on the 1-inch line, and the game ended in a tie, 6-6.